Hi there. Welcome to this week's module. This week, we're exploring something that most people don't expect when they start recovery. How much what we give to others can influence our own healing. This week, we'll take a look at why giving processed foods to others, even when we're not eating them ourselves, can still affect our brain, our identity, and our cravings. We'll walk through the neuroscience of cue exposure, the emotional patterns that keep us stuck, and the small practical shifts that can make a big difference. It's not about judgment. It's about understanding what's going on underneath the surface so you can make choices that truly support your recovery. So let's dive in. Now, the food that we're giving to others might sound like a strange thing to focus on, especially if your recovery feels like it should be about you and your choices. But this week, we're going to look at how what we offer to others is deeply connected to our own healing. Let's take a look at why this matters. Most people entering recovery expect to change their own eating. That part makes sense. What they don't expect is how much recovery will ask them to reconsider what they offer to others. Giving processed foods to family, friends, coworkers, or children might seem unrelated to your personal recovery, but it's actually deeply connected. Why? Because every time you purchase, prepare, serve, or store these foods, your brain and nervous system are being re-exposed to the very cues you're trying to unlearn. You might not be the one using it, but your dopamine system doesn't care. It still registers the sound, the smell, the visual cues. These sensory signals light up the same brain pathways that were active during your use. In other words, exposure still affects you, even when you're doing it for someone else. And beyond the brain science, there's also something emotional going on. Continuing to give these foods to others can keep certain identity structures alive, especially the ones that developed to protect you in the past. In parts work, we call these protector parts, like the caregiver who learned to show love through sweet gestures, or the social peacemaker who keeps everyone else comfortable even when it comes at your own expense. So, when we talk about stopping the habit of giving these foods to others, we're not talking about control. And we're definitely not talking about judgment. We're talking about making space for your own healing values and giving yourself the chance to really step out of those old patterns, one thought choice at a time. Now we're going to talk about the science of cue proximity. Let's go a little deeper into how this actually works on a biological level. Cravings don't just come from inside you. They're often learned responses to external things, something you see, smell, hear, or touch that your brain has associated with comfort, reward, or relief. This is what's known as cue-induced craving, and it's a well-documented phenomena in addiction neuroscience. When you come into contact with a cue tied to past processed food use, like a package design, a specific container, or a certain drawer in the kitchen or the pantry, or even a time of day, your brain starts activating several regions almost instantly. Here's what gets activated. The amygdala lights up. That's the part of your brain that tags emotional memories and evaluates whether something is a threat or a reward. And then the hippocampus comes online. It retrieves the context. Basically, it says, hey, this has happened here before. And finally, the nucleus accumbens, the part of the brain involved in dopamine anticipation, starts revving up the craving engine. It's getting ready for what it thinks is coming next. Now, all of this was originally designed to help us survive, to remember where food or comfort could be found. But in today's world, surrounded by hyper-palatable engineered products, this survival system gets hijacked. Every single interaction with those foods, even when you're not the one eating them, strengthens the association. One study from 2011 using fMRI imaging found that simply viewing images of hyper-processed foods activated the same regions in the brain that light up in substance users anticipating a drug. That included reward circuitry, attention networks, and emotional processing centers. So yes, your brain is responding, even without taking a bite. So what happens when you give processed food to someone? Whether you're buying it, preparing it, or just serving it, you're doing three things neurologically. First, you're reactivating the associative memory networks that your brain tied to that food. Second, you're strengthening the motor and sensory patterns that go with seeking, handling, and being around it. And third, you're reinforcing the belief, even unintentionally, that this food is normal, loving, or necessary in daily life. In short, you're keeping the entire behavioral and neural structure of food addiction alive in your space, even if you're not eating it yourself. And this isn't just a food issue. We see this across addiction recovery. A 2002 study by Dr. Nora Volkow and colleagues showed that people recovering from substance use experience physiological arousal and strong cravings just from being exposed to drug-related cues. That includes seeing paraphernalia, watching someone else use, or even being near it. The same principle applies here. When processed food is present in your space, even if it's not for you, it increases your exposure to visual and scent cues. It reactivates your habitual neural networks. It adds emotional strain, decision fatigue, and inner conflict. And it raises your risk for just one bite or even a full cascade relapse. So when we ask the question, can I stop giving this to others? We're not being rigid or judgmental. We're asking a really smart, strategic question about how to protect your recovery. Bottom line, the more distance you can create from processed foods physically, visually, and relationally, the more support you give your brain to rewire for lasting recovery. It's not about restriction. It's about relief. Now we're going to talk about reframing what nourishment means. When we start changing how we eat and how we feed others, something bigger than nutrition starts to stir. Because for many of us, food has never been just about food. It's been about a way of saying, I love you. I'm proud of you. You've had a hard day. Let me help. So when we stop giving processed foods to others, it doesn't just feel like breaking a habit. It can feel like we're breaking a bond, like we're taking love off the table. And that can be emotional, even disorienting. But here's the truth. We're not taking love away. We're redefining it into something that supports healing and not harm. The reason this feels so loaded isn't just social, it's neurological. Highly processed foods trigger dopamine, a lot of it, especially when we're stressed. And over time, the brain starts to link those foods with comfort, relief, and even belonging. You've probably seen this firsthand, maybe when your kids lit up at a birthday party or when you handed someone a treat on a tough day. Those moments create powerful emotional memories, and the brain stores them. The insula maps the feeling. This feels good. The amygdala flags it as safe and comforting. And when you're stressed, the prefrontal cortex often steps aside. Your brain says, we know what works. go get that. So when we say food feels like love, what we're often remembering is regulation, not nutrition, but relief. So now comes the beautiful question. If food has been our way of showing care, what else is possible? We're not getting rid of joy, celebration, or tenderness. We're just upgrading how we express them. Instead of food equal love, let's try presence equals love. That could look like sitting down with someone and truly listening, asking how they are, and really staying present for the answer. Sharing time together that's about connection, not consumption. Instead of treat equals reward, we shift to safety equals reward. That means creating a calm, cue-free space where nervous systems can relax. That's what most of us really need anyway. So instead of sugar equals comfort, we'd rediscover co-regulation equals comfort. A soft blanket, a kind note, a shared walk. Moments that don't spike dopamine, but offer something more lasting, connection and care. From a behavioral science perspective, substitution matters. Trying to just stop a behavior doesn't usually work, but replacing it with something else, that sticks. A 2011 study on smoking found that people who used gum or breathing exercises during cravings were way more likely to succeed than those who relied on willpower alone. And that holds true for us too. Instead of handing someone a sugary snack, maybe you offer your time, your presence, a quiet moment. Instead of snacks, you offer a ritual or a grounding practice. Instead of teaching, this food will soothe you, you show up with emotional availability, predictability, care. These aren't second best options, they're better ones. You're offering relief that lasts, not relief that backfires. Of course, not every part of you will be on board right away. Some might say, I don't know how else to show I care. What if they don't like this new version of me? What if it just feels empty or awkward now? And to those parts, we can say, you've done such a beautiful job showing love through food. You were doing what you knew, and it meant something. Now, we're learning something new. We're still showing love, just with less harm.